after I do that last coat, I wait for it to dry a short time, and then I check each piece to make sure I haven't missed any spots. And basically, I did miss some, so I just give it that little fourth coat, touch-up coat. Now, you probably at this point, after you give it that last little touch-up coat, or after the third coat, if that's fine, you probably should wait several hours. I'm not exactly sure how fast this paint really gets hard, but normally I would wait a few hours, but because of time constraints, I'm going to show you how to use the jigs and glue this up. And if some paint does come off because of the jigs, I've never had it come off, but since it's such a short time it may, you can touch it up. So basically, you have these two stands that go with the wooden, and then these are the stands for the advertising benches. So I'm going to pick this one, and basically you can look at the sides and pick out which side is the best on each of them, and then put that side to the best side to the outside, the worst side. Well, these are all pretty good. So basically you slide it into the jig with the back lined up. So I'll slide it into the jig with the back lined up. And you push it down there. So if I turn it sideways and look, the backs are pretty well lined up. Then I take and I lay it down on this jig and line up the tops. Okay, oops, see, it'll break apart. Even with the jigs, I have a little trouble doing this. Let me get these other pieces out of the way. So I get that in. It may take you a few tries. It typically does me to get everything in and lined up. There we go. Maybe I got it this time. I think I may have it. All right. So that's what we want. And that'll hold it nice and solid. Now what we do is we take, well, I can see it's slightly out of that jig there. So I'm going to give it one more little push. Maybe slide it up a little. See. There we go. Now, if you look at this piece, you can see the bottom has the slots in it. And basically, we can do one of two things. I'm going to move this out, so hopefully I'm getting it. We can spread the glue in those slots and then put it on. Or we can spread the glue on the pedestal and put it on. Now, I use this original tacky glue, and they've got various types. This seems to dry up fairly clear, easy to clean up. So, and time isn't the essence. I mean, some of you may use the fast drying. I've never done that, but we'll see. So I put a little bit down here on a spare board I've got. There we go. Remember to put your lid back on, which I always forget to do. And I think what I'm going to do is spread it in the slot with my toothpick, my trusty toothpick. There we go. Just, you don't need to put too much in there. I mean, these are just going to be on your layout. They're not going to be used by little people or anything. So, and you'll see sometimes my glue will form a little string. We'll just wrap it around your toothpick. You get it on there. This will be on the underside too, so that helps a little bit as far as not showing. Okay, spread it out. There we go. I'll put my toothpick over there. Then we take our bottom, flip it over, and we want to set it on our little thing here. That's what happens when you got big fingers. And the edges ought to line up, and it ought to go down in the grooves. And this is where I'll use another toothpick, not my gluing one, as a little crowbar to pry this thing to the front, because I got a little too far back. You want it to line up right there with that front of that pedestal on both sides. There, that's pretty well lined up. All right. And it won't be lined up in the back because these benches were all, well, I pushed it out when I pushed it down, so I can give it a little another squeeze out. Maybe that was just glue coming out. I guess that was just glue coming out, so use my toothpick to wipe that off. I put too much glue in there, but it won't matter. That'll go clear and you won't even notice it. If you want to at this point, you can take a little bit of paper towel, which I always keep around, and wipe it off a little bit. Okay, now I give that just a few minutes to dry a little bit before I put the back on. But you can see the use of the jigs in this case. Again, you want the backs of the jig to line, the pedestals to line up, and you want the tops to line up, and that'll give you a nice shape, and then you line the front. Does that look okay? Let me get my toothpick again to hold this down. You get a few minutes to work with this. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to let that dry just for a few minutes. Let the glue solidify so I don't knock it around when I put on the back. All right, I've let that glue dry for just a couple of minutes. I'm going to turn it on its back. Now again, for this back part, you actually will cover part of it with the ad. So that probably should be the part that is the not the least nice part as far as being painted. And what we're going to do is we're going to slip it onto here. We're going to put glue on these two legs. Then we're going to put it on. This does not have slots in it. And we're going to even it up with that, put it even with the jig. Now, we're not putting it clear down to the bottom because that isn't the way they were built. They were built so they were up so that you could see the ads with that gap in it. And the concrete pillar did not go to the top. So when you get done with this, the pillar will be lower, but that's probably about the right gap right there. And again, we can use our toothpick as our pry bar, but let's start by getting some glue. And since we're not putting it all the way down, we don't want the glue all the way down. We want the glue just up here at the top. And you don't need, again, you don't need that much glue. The pile of glue I put out before is still moist. You can see I didn't let it dry that long because that glue didn't dry up. So that might be pretty good. Put a little more on this other side here. Now I'm gonna just even it out so when I push it on there, I don't squash glue all over the place. I think I had a little too much on. There we go. Okay. Pick this guy up, and you don't have to be, I'm kind of shaky. You put it down on. You don't use the one you just used for gluing. I got it lined up pretty well, but I want it lower. And now I want it even. Let's see, are we even? No, I don't think so. I want that a little higher, or that a little lower. That looks even. I look like I'm even with my jig, so I'm centered, so I'll push down on that. Let's make sure I'm still even. I am. So that's it. We've just completed that bench, but I'm not going to take the jig off. I'm going to let that glue dry a little bit. Sometimes the jigs can be a little stiff to get off, so I'll show you what I do there in a few minutes. But again, I want to let this dry for maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, let's say, just to get that glue hard. And I think it says 20 minutes on here. You're supposed to keep it clamped, but I don't know. Maybe that's a different glue. So I'll be back in, say, 20 minutes. So I'm going to bring back the advertising bench. And we're going to try to pop it hasn't sat for that long, maybe an hour. We're going to try to pop off the jig. And when I do that, I like to twist it this way. I can feel that it's, so I actually won't hold the benches that I glued on. I'll hold the two parts of the jig, and that just came loose. So I was successful there. Then I'll hold this part of the jig. I won't do one leg, I'll do both, and it came off. Great. Now we'll lay it down there on the paper, and we'll start to prepare our advertisements. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a KFC bench, maybe. We give you these. There's these 6. And we give you, let me get it out of here, a Grandpa's Railroad one. Now, basically, you can make your own. If you have a business on your train that you'd like to highlight, you have some hardware store or something, you know, where you've chosen the name and you really like it, you want to advertise it on a bench, you can make this graphics, like I did Grandpa's Railroad graphics, using something like PowerPoint. Any of the graphics things will do it. The ratio is about 3-to-1, and you can measure it on here, but it's about 3 times as wide as it is high. And then you can get the dimensions you need to shrink it to, because basically you created like 6 inches by 2 inches and then shrink it down and print it out. Now, let me see. So we're using Avery, just Avery label paper. And the reason for that is that it sticks, but it doesn't stick that hard, meaning you can adjust it when you put it on. And if you know, I can move it around till I get it where I want it, and then when I press it down, it stays on. Now, if it ever would come off, you could just put a little bit of glue on to hold it on. The other advantage of that is, if you have a bench that you're using, and you want to change the ad someday to one of your stores that you have on your train that may be unique, you could do that later. So we could put on the KFC one now, and then we could later on go and change it to something that's for your railroad. I have to go find, first thing we need to do is cut this out. I got to go get my scissors. Now, you can cut this out with a ruler, an X-Acto knife, or these are cheap scissors, but I love them. They're very good. And you basically can just cut along those dashed lines. And if when you glue it on, you kind of cut along the, I didn't cut that too well, but you cut right along. These are cheap scissors, but they work really well for this. I bet I'm out of camera. Go back up in camera and cut. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to cut along here. I'm going to do another cut here. There we go. All right, I'm going to just lay this on here and see how it is. If it's too big, that's going to fit nicely. If it's too big, then you can always trim around the edges. Now on the O gauge, I really don't have that happening. Sometimes on the HO, you have to trim around the edges. So the next thing we have to do is we have to peel off the backing paper on here. Okay, I got it peeled. Then I'm working upside down, so I put this on and I don't press it. I just kind of lay it on. Then I'm having trouble getting it out of my hand. Then I use my trusty toothpick to move it around. What do you think? That looks, I gotta adjust it here a little bit. I'm gonna pushed it down a little too much. You just kind of want to square it up. It's jumping too much. So I'll push down on that end. I'll push up on that end. I think I got to move it over this way a little bit to get it centered. Whoops. I'll get her. It just takes time. That's why I like this paper. You can move it. It doesn't just stick as you get there. And like I said, just get some Avery label paper, and you can make your own stickers for whatever ads you want to show on your train. Maybe I ought to cut the camera here. This is taking me so long to get this right, but again, we got time, and you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to press it down. Now I'm going to put some pressure on it. Then I'm going to wipe it and press it down. Now it's stuck. And there's your bench. I'll leave it like this so the camera could see it. And you do not get the figures with these benches, but this is what your bench will look like. Let me just put a figure on here with a figure on it. This is an O-scale figure. We'll sit him on there. You can sit him on either side, and that's what they'll look like. The HO is basically the same techniques. I'm going to pull him off. HO is basically the same techniques as we use here. And the jigs are the same. So it is a little harder to do because it is a little smaller, but with the jigs, you can line them up nicely. All right, I want to show you how to do the second type. The other type of ad bench is done the same way. But on the wooden bench, I do it very similar, except I line up the front, put it in the slot. Oh, that fit in nicely. Put the second one in the slot. I'm sorry, the back. I do the back again. Getting my back and my front confused. There we go. Then I'll flip it over, and on this one I'll align the tops just like the last one. See, I pushed in a little bit. When I get it in the jig, it'll make sure everything is square. Still not square. It's got to be spread a little more. I guess I'm blocking the view here with my hands, but I got to do it. When you got big hands, you got big hands. That's why we have jigs. There we go. I'm going to turn that so you can see, hopefully. See how I've got the top lined up pretty much? Might do a little adjustment there with my little toothpick crowbar. And then I've got the fronts lined up. Let me press those down. Let me push that in. And that's how I've got that done. I'm going to tip it up. And on this one, this piece is the bottom piece. It does not have grooves. We're going to put it on like this and line it up with the front of the legs. All right, something like that. So again, we're going to have to put the glue. We're going to have to put our glue on the pillars or on the legs, and then lay that on. So my glue is obviously dry, so I'm going to put some more glue on my little template here. Yeah, not get, there we go. There's a little glue. Actually, before I do this, I want to do one other adjustment. I'll probably screw this up. There we go. I want to push that bottom in. So you see how that's now fit? I've got the bottom in the jig and the top in the jig. And I've got the front aligned. I like that. Okay. So that's nice and tight. Now I'm going to spread a little glue. Spread a little glue with my toothpick on the bench. Again, this bench isn't going all the way back. There's going to be a crack there. Oh, that's just about the right amount of glue, too. I'm going to use my toothpick to get the other side. That's not enough glue. And get that on there. Okay. That looks pretty good. I think I'll do the same thing as before. I'll wipe it off or wipe it back a little more like that. Make sure it's evenly spread. That's pretty good. All right, now I just have to set the bench on. I want to set it so it lines at the front, and the width is even with the jig. The jigs are cut to the same width as the base, as the seat, I mean. So I lay it down on there. Before I get it to squeeze, I'm going to get my little crowbar. Take a good look. It looks like it's pretty well aligned right here. Look at that. I did it the first time. Looks pretty well aligned there, unless I just knocked it out. I'm going to press it down, and when I did, it slid back a little bit. but I'll slide it forward with my little toothpick crowbar. Need a little more crowbar on that one. Okay. It's still aligned with the back jig. Don't think I need to press it down anymore, but I pressed it the first time pretty hard. I'm going to wipe a little glue from the front there. And I am going to use my crowbar just to bring that out of hair. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm sort of a perfectionist. So there we go. There's the base on. Like before, we'll wait a few minutes, let that dry, and then we'll put the back on. All right, so we've let the seat dry for a few minutes. Now we're going to apply the backing. So we'll lay it down. If you look closely, you can see, hopefully on this camera, the backing has two strips. Let me turn it backwards to the back side. There you can see the strips. Those should line up with the pillars on the bench. And we're going to place it. I'll put this in something like that. See how they line up? And we're going to place it a little below the top. On this type bench, the concrete tops went a little higher, so we're going to place it about like that. I'm not sure you can see it, but let me turn this. That's about how we're going to place it. So what I'm going to do is put glue on the, that's my pry bar. I'll get my glue over here. Well, I waited a little too long. My glue is drying up. So I'll put some more glue out there. There's a little bit of dab of glue. Put the cap back on. Now we'll spread some. Again, we're going to let the top stick over, so we just want to spread it here in the middle. Then, like I said, this is going to be easy because those strips that are vertical will line up with these back things. That's the nice thing about these jigs that we give you is that they really aid, especially somebody like me with big hands, to get these benches to look nice, because there we go. You see the back side, how it's flat. The back side is flat, the front side is indented. So let me see if I can get this on there now that I've... There. Now I can use give me my pry bar. Oops. Almost lost my pry bar. I want to push it a little that way, it looks like. I want to go down a little. See, I haven't really pressed down on it yet to set it. Ooh, that looks pretty good. Now, I'm sure it's going to move when I set it. Yeah, it moved a little bit. I want to go down a little bit on this side. Turn it sideways. I can see better the height there. That looks pretty good. It looks like I may have put too much glue in there, but when I pressed it down, but I have a feeling once it dries, you won't notice that at all. So there we go. So now we're going to just set that aside. And again, we want that to dry fairly significantly because sometimes when you pop the jig off, I'll show you how I like to do it. Sometimes it can wiggle things, so I like to have it fairly solid. Normally I would leave it overnight, but I'm going to cheat today and try to do it a little quicker. So, but we need to let that dry now. All right, the last thing I want to do is remove the jig from this little guy. Again, I'll try to twist it. I hold the back jig because we don't want to put pressure on the seat of the back. Oh, the back of that came off nicely. See, there's no problem, even though it wasn't very long, there's no problem with doing anything to the paint. Here, I'm going to push down. You see how that comes off? Again, comes off very nicely, and this hasn't been on very long at all. So there's your little bench. I'll tilt it back, and that's it. So thank you for watching this. I hope it's been helpful. Even old guy like me with big hands can do this, so I'm sure you can fix almost every screw up. I did very well today. I normally screw up much more than this, so I'm quite pleased with that. And I think I'll put together my last advertising bench, and I will use these or give them to a friend, I'm not sure. But thank you for watching.